Hello and welcome to Tonalist Painting with M. Francis McCarthy. This is your painter in residence, M. Francis McCarthy, and the painting I'm bringing you today is called Rippled Pond. Now, this is a bit of a one-off in that this painting is basically just a 5x7 only. I did not do a painting of this larger, and I was very close. I was considering it, and I may in the future. I was pretty happy with the way this painting turned out, and I think I might have even set a board aside for it. At the last moment, I decided it just didn't have enough joie de vivre to hold a large painting. The subject basically is just the ripples in the pond, which, you know, is a fine subject. I didn't want to get hung up on this at a large size, and so I just opted to not paint it larger, and that's something I've been trying to do a lot more of this year. Is just, if I think it's not going to be super strong and super awesome, I don't mind just painting the 5x7 study and having just the study. That's fine with me. For a long time I would I was almost automatic with it. I would composite 10 scenes or more, and then do the 5x7s, and then just automatically assign some larger sizes, and then jump in and just do everything. And well, I've talked a lot in the past about your internal editor. You need to have one if you're going to try and do good paintings. I mean, that's a given. But to the degree that you listen to this internal editor, your paintings will be much better. So that's something I'm trying to do more and more. Again, I'm really happy with this painting though, and happy to present it to you today, and hopefully you dig it too. It's very different for me. It's actually based on a photo that was, of this creek I used to ride my bike by. I used to commute to go to my job as a commercial illustrator. I had about a 10-mile commute on the bike, and it was down this lovely creek, and a lot of great views there. And for years I just rode my bike through there, and wasn't painting or anything. I was just concentrating on my career as a commercial illustrator and doing things like music and stuff. But about the time I started wanting to do paintings and stuff, I got my camera out and started capturing some of these shots I'd sort of seen many times on my bike. And the neat thing is, it was either quite early in the morning or late in the afternoon, so really the landscape is at its best at those times. You've got the long shadows and the warm saturated colors, and a lot of other good things happen in the late afternoon or the early morning that help create good landscapes. So anyway, I hope you're gonna dig it here. And we talked a little bit yesterday about what had gone on in the studio last week. It was a decent week. I had some days where I had quite a lot of work I got done, and then other days where just a little bit of work got done. But either way, I got something done every day, which has been good. There's been a lot of other things coming along and sort of interrupting the actual painting, and I'm a big believer in trying to paint every day that you're in the studio. Well, if you're not in the studio, get in the studio, do some paintings, because the only way to really get any good is just to do a lot of paintings. I've said it before, and I'll say it till the day I die. In fact, you can get me on the deathbed and say, Mike, what's the way to be a great painter? And I'll say, do a lot of paintings and get rid of all the bad ones, and people will think you were awesome. So, like I said yesterday, did a lot of second and even third passes last week. I got into about, in fact, yesterday, which was Saturday. By the way, for the record here, today is Sunday, August 13th. In the year 2017 of our Lord. Anyway, I did have a pretty good week. I didn't mess anything up. I didn't overwork anything, and Even when I'm going into third passes, I had some third passes that were pretty extensive, but I'm keeping what's good and I'm pushing things a little further. That's really what the third pass is all about. You know, pump up those brights a little bit more, add some lighter, more saturated colors in the highlights sometimes, and that's basically what I was into yesterday, and I'm quite happy with the painting I got done yesterday. And yesterday I also did a study after a George Inness, and it's not a one of George's greatest paintings, but it's a nice painting he did. I have no idea what size his original was, but of course, like all these 25 days of tonalism studies that I do, I did it as a 5x7, and as I've indicated on some previous videos, I may be well, I'm going to definitely have to see through the 25 days of Tonalism Volume 2, which I'm currently sort of working on in the studio here and there, and I've gotten back into that. I've got about, I don't know, 4 more, I think, or even less, to do the first color pass on, and then generally second color pass goes pretty fast on those guys because, well, A, they're small, and B, I try and do everything I can in that first pass. And there were occasions actually in the first 100 days of tonalism where I probably about 30 of those paintings in the first 100 days of tonalism I did were one pass only. But it was actually that doing that project that led me to believe that there was definitely some value in doing a second pass on the 5x7s. Sometimes it's just softening something with a little texture, a little dry brushing. I like that, or a little bit of glazing here and there, you know. One thing I've noticed, and I've been noticing this since I've done all these studies, is that the originals always, you can go to any of the blog posts and you'll see the originals look a lot more yellow than the painting I did, and you don't actually set out to not duplicate that yellowiness, but it's probably not so bad since paintings may yellow over time as they're exposed to things like tobacco in the environment or other contaminants. And certainly if they are varnished, varnish has a tendency to go very yellow over time. I don't do a lot of varnishing, but I believe in it. I just don't like doing it, and the reason is I just like to keep my options open. That, and it's just kind of a mess. And the other thing is, sometimes I wish there was a varnish that was a semi-gloss and not a full gloss. There are some varnishes that are matte, and they accomplish this by adding wax to the varnish, and you've got to stir it up, and you've really got to cajole that stuff. And actually, I don't mind a matte finish if it was a you know, as long as there were, you know, all the dull and matte colors were nice. You know, everything had an even tone, but it's just been too much of a hassle, so I don't really worry about it. I guess I just kind of let posterity worry about it. What else is going on? Like I said, getting into the finishing up the 25 days of tonalism first pass, and this is the first time with the 25 days of tonalism that I've done them on the burnt umber background, and so that necessitates a different approach. There's a lot less of that ground color that can come through when I'm working with the burnt sienna. Lots of it. I leave tons of it because it's kind of a middle value, and it just sort of doesn't jump out at you. You'll see it around the edges of trees or even up in the clouds. You'll see it everywhere in my paintings where I use a burnt sienna ground. But on the burnt umber, I do leave lots of burnt umber peeking through, but usually in the ground areas, not so much in the sky. And I end up with like little black specks, and they look black, but they're actually little specks that don't actually get covered in the sky. And to be honest, it doesn't bother me. I kind of like that look too. It just, you know, you can't, as a painter, it's not really good to sit there and start picking at things like, oh, there's a tiny little thing here, a tiny little thing there. I do some picking. I get in there with the palette knife if you watch any of my videos, and especially when we're talking about third passes and stuff, because so much of what I'm doing there is sort of subtle applications of paint, like a dry brush. Actually, almost all of it's some sort of form of dry brush where I'm attempting to keep some of the color from below and utilize the texture of the board and the paint I've previously applied to just kind of play that up and get kind of a, I don't know, I call it a crusty feel. Anyway, the other thing I've been doing was, some of you know I do a Pinterest page for tonalism. There's like 800 paintings there. There's a bit of duplication, and I don't mind the duplication because colors can vary quite a bit from one person's capture of a painting to another's. So I think it's good just to have multiples rather than worry about it. And but one thing I did today was I created a folder on my desktop and dragged a bunch of those to that folder, and there's a few that have a certain tone or cast to it that I'm very interested in going after something like that in my own work. And I'm getting really adept at sort of doing that thing. Another thing I've been into this year, really more the second part of the year, is deciding to give a picture an overall cast of some type, like either blue, not all of them, but either blue or red or yellow. And in fact, the latest pass of paintings I'm completing right now in the studio, I probably have 2 or 3 that are just really almost completely yellow, plays on different yellows, and looking really good. So today I went ahead and took some time and grabbed a lot of those, as well as some other paintings that I kind of want to sort of take the color, kind of a color lead from on some of my own paintings. And that's kind of a new thing. Actually, I've tried doing it in the past, but I've gotten much better at doing it. I guess that's the thing. Sometimes in the past I've looked at things like Van Gogh and stuff and attempted to get that into my work. Anyway, I can see we're getting close to the end here. If you like this video, please click subscribe. Also, go to my website, landscapepainter.co.nz, and you can follow my blog as well. There's a link on the website and also a link underneath the video where you can find a higher resolution image of this painting we did today, as well as 2 zoom-ins. So we'll see you next week. Meanwhile, take good care and stay out of trouble.